Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, the fun music sharing podcast of four friends hanging out with each other, music sharing and sharing music. I'm Peter Rave, your man with no plan and no idea of how to intro a podcast. Here with me is, of course, my crew, my team, my squad. We've got Brett.
Did you guys know that oxen aren't an actual species, but they're actually any kind of bovine that's been castrated or not? There's no real rules. It's an ox is not its own species.
Mm-hmm. Drew.
I did not know that at all, Brett. That's actually really weird. So wait, you're telling me that, like, if I say that it is an ox, it could be any type of...
Well, you've got
bovine?
to use it. You've got to use it for pulling stuff.
Yeah,
it's got to be a beast of burden. Walks for miles, its feet are hurting.
Yes.
It just has to pull things, and it's an ox.
Yeah.
And Patrick.
The More You Know, Star with Rainbow. And Jingle.
G.I. Joe. We're here to talk about music. The provider of said music, the provider of the music this week, the one sharing with the crew, is Drew. Drew, what do you got for us this week?
Well, I'm going to see these guys along with a couple others in July. I was super excited about it, so I decided that I wanted to bring one of their albums. This is a band from New Jersey by the name of the Bouncing Souls with their 1999 album, Hopeless Romantic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had high expectations, but let's talk about, let's ask the guys. Brett, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, I'm fairly familiar with the Bouncing Souls. They were one of those bands that I saw like half my life ago at Warped Tours. And their albums floated around. Strangely, in North Central Indiana, there was a sizable punk rock following, even in the rural areas. They were never my go-to band, but I really never had anything against them.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, what were your expectations?
I too have fond memories of Bouncing Souls at Warped Tour, although they were never a band I really actively listened to. They were like, I've heard parts of this album before, but like of the myriad of epitaph bands from the late 90s and early 2000s, this was not one of the ones I listened to.
Yeah, I had expectations. I knew Bouncing Souls. I've listened to their songs many times. There were several songs on my rotations, but not a full album. I would say. But yeah, Drew, how would you describe this album musically? What would be the themes, elements?
Well, the weird thing about Bouncing Souls, this is one of those bands that, like you guys said, has been around for a while. They've been around since '89, and they've been doing it, right? They've been putting in their work, paying their dues, or whatever you want to say, that a punk rock band would do. And they've gotten a good reputation for good reason. I feel like I've been listening to them forever, just because they've always been there, right? The weird thing about Bouncing Souls in general is that a lot of bands, even like punk bands, you'll go to their Wikipedia page and there'll be like 5 different genres, right? It'll be like pop punk, punk rock, blah, 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 blah. Like it'll list like a bunch of things. There's one and it just says punk rock. That's all the Bouncing Souls give you. That's sort of what they are. And they sort of, to me, for that like sort of like skate punk sort of feel, are one of the bands that perfectly personifies that. There are sing-along chants. There are crunchy power chord guitars. There's a bass that is usually pretty subdued in the mix and not doing anything like super crazy, but every once in a while have its point. The thing about Bouncing Souls, and especially Hopeless Romantic, is that bands like this remind me in a weird way of Alton Brown. And let me loop around and explain why that makes sense. Alton Brown always made it a point where if there was a dish that he was making on Good Eats or in any of his other shows that was simple, that was just a couple of ingredients or a couple of things, it required a certain precision to get it right. Because if you screwed up just a little bit, if you didn't get really good of this ingredient or that ingredient, you were going to screw everything up and everything would fail. So you had to be on point. You had to know exactly what you wanted. And I think Bouncing Souls do that really, really well. It's not that anything is overly complicated, but everything is so well done that it's just really, the Bouncing Souls are a name because of that. This album is sort of their most iconic because, in my opinion, and many others, it arguably has some of their best songs. And it was kind of them getting comfortable with what would be sort of the Bouncing Souls dynamic going into the early and late 2000s, right? Is that the tempo shifting in the songs, letting the songs go a little longer than like 2 minutes. Like, not crazy. They weren't not being a punk band. It was still going to be like a 3-minute song or 4-minute song, but like still going in and playing around with tempos and playing around with having a bit more intricacies in that. And being more comfortable doing it. We'll get into it, but there are songs that I may have been talking a lot on Twitter lately about wrestling, and there might be a song that fans of wrestling may recognize, and there may be songs that people recognize from or have weird references in them, and it just is something that this album, I think, does that. If I was going to bring in a Bouncing Souls record, it was either going to be this or Anchors Away, because I think Anchors Away was their first that really had good, excellent production qualities. But Hopeless and Romantic is sort of iconic. You can't not do it.
Yeah. Brett, what would be the themes elements that caught your attention?
All right. This is upbeat power chord punk rock with all the woes and ahs, like all it's one of those. It's also very beat driven, like the drums drive. So if you have more of a march type feel or they don't really get swingy, but the beat drives the tunes. The guitar turns into a drum when you start palm muting. You get all that. The bass is the standout instrument. Because if you're looking for musical gymnastics, that's where it's going to be located at. There's not a whole lot of time for boodle-doos and whatnot. There's something I wanted to bring up that I noticed on the Spotify version, and it got me changing headphones out and changing what machines I was using until I figured out, this is somebody just recording a record. On the Spotify. So there's needle scratch and there is blowout because it's somebody recorded a record, like a vinyl. And it kind of sounded like butt because a lot of times the cymbals would be clipping and sometimes the vocals would be clipping. And when there was silence, there was a needle scratching. And then I got to the end of the song, the album, and I heard that, it was a record that was just spinning on its platter for, a couple minutes or so, with nobody lifting the needle off. So yeah, that sort of production wise, I would not say this is top notch, recorded in a vacuum. There's definitely some noises, some that are added at the time of recording, some when they ripped whatever record that they had pressed. But I don't get it, but it's at least it's punk rock and not like an opera or something where you would care a whole lot. So it wasn't. I wouldn't call it a deal breaker. It was a little disappointing.
Yeah. Patrick, what would be the themes elements that caught your attention?
This is mid '90s like punk rock, but specifically kind of the vaguely sloppy style. And I mean that just I almost as a stylistic choice. It's all power chords all day. As Drew said, the bass is probably the strongest in terms of the quality of what's going on with it. There's some decent bass lines in here, but it isn't
Ah. Oh fuck. Okay. All right. I was trying to unplug and plug back in my webcam. As you can see,
That went
as
well.
you could have seen, I had no video. Yeah. You were
good.
talking about the bass.
Oh, so we didn't lose it all?
No, no, everything was
Cool.
recording fine. It was just I
Okay,
unplugged my
Pedro,
internet.
edit this out.
I unplugged my Ethernet cable, and then, while I was trying to unplug my webcam.
Oh,
Yeah, that'll do it.
So no,
Okay.
everything's fine. Everything's recording.
So I'm gonna jump back probably. So this is the like sort of in the realm of like the late '90s punk scene. This is sort of on the sloppy, fast, fun. Don't worry about like being super tight or super clean side of punk rock. It is if you're a young lad and want to play punk rock guitar, this is not a bad place to start. It's just 4 or 5 chords tops, and just playing them very quickly. And but like for example, the bass is probably where the best like musicality is coming from. There's some good bass runs in here, and I do enjoy a good punk rock bass player. But it is very much different. It's not like as clean and polished as something like later Newfound Glory got, and it's not as tight and fast like Blink-182. It's very just like it's very much high energy, maybe at the expense of doing everything really, really like tight and clean.
Yeah, I definitely can understand that. But overall, I think it's high energy and high fun. It might not be the tightest, but it's pretty. It has some good musicianship in there. But
I think it's focused on. I think this is a band whose live show probably is what carries them, and the records don't matter.
just a little.
I think that is
Just a little.
that's okay. That is a thing some bands do. There are a lot of bands who put out okay records but kill it live, and I've seen these guys live. They're a blast. I had never heard a song of theirs when I saw them in like 03 or 04, and they were great. So I think that's sort of the vibe they really go for.
It's all about having a good time. It's all about the good times.
And then it's Rancid, and then it's Dropkick Murphys, and I don't know how I'm going to live the next day. I'm super pumped.
Yeah, I'm jealous. Drew, let's talk about some tracks. Talk about some key tracks.
Yes.
What would be the key tracks to zeroing on?
Let's. You open with a lead song that's also the title track in Hopeless Romantic. You're gonna have to do a lot to make me happy, right? I was happy. It's some raw ass vocals, but there's a lot of groups singing along parts where you pump your fist in the air. There's some crunchy guitars. It's fun and it's upbeat. It's one of those songs that like is one of my favorites to just drive down the road on a summer day with the windows down, just feeling okay about life. Fight to Live, I needed to bring out because Patrick said it. The bass in this can very much at times come in, and I'm glad that it went noticed. I don't want the bass player to go unnoticed because there are times where he's doing things that are really interesting, and Fight to Live sort of has that for me. And the other one I will bring out is Ole, because if there's ever a song by any punk band that'll get a bunch of hooligans in the crowd chanting, it's this one. I know it's a bit generico, but I love it all the same.
But
Yes.
I got jokes.
Yeah.
You've been sitting on that for a week, haven't you?
Yeah.
You picked that album just for the joke.
I didn't pick it just for the joke, but
But it was there.
about it.
It's like, well, I'm picking this album, and the joke is there.
The joke is there. I gotta use it. And like it went off in my head at first. I was like, oh god, I know there are 2 other people in this podcast that could make an El Generico reference. Could I do it? And I was like,
I have
oh wait,
no idea what the hell
I'm-
you're talking about.
I'm going to be the first one up to talk about songs. I can do it without having to worry if they're going to make the El Generico reference.
Yes. For those that don't know,
he's a
'cause that is-
wrestler.
Yeah. For those that
Oh.
know, and for Brett,
I figured.
the man currently known as Sami Zayn in the WWE. We can say it. The fun of like saying he's in Mexico with the orphans is it's past. We can say it. In the Indies, when it was creating his character, he referred to himself as El Generico, the generic luchador. We're playing,
which is great because he's a red-headed Syrian Canadian boy.
Yeah. But like you didn't know that.
He does not look the part.
But you
But it
didn't
was
really
great.
know that. It was just mainly as like he was a good wrestler that was that had high flying ability in that. Well, I can wrestle like a luchador. Let's make the luchador joke. I'm the generic luchador, and it was a fun joke that turned into one of the most beloved characters and people in independent wrestling for years.
And he used Ole as his entrance
theme
music.
song, and it was perfect because that's what any independent crowd back in the day, especially like all of them would. Once you heard that, it was everybody to their feet singing along. Yes, so everybody's caught up. Brett, what were the key songs for you?
Well, I'm happy that I both was able to give the knowledge of Ox lore and was able to receive El Generico information. But no, Ole is no. I'll just stay here, right here. I'm going to make the hot take from Brett. It is no sex and violence, but it's. I could see how you could get people chanting Ole. I have a baseball story about that, but I'm going to leave that till later. Hopeless Romantic as an album, as a song. It's simple and effective. It's a pretty great album opener for this album, specifically because it gives you your first taste of where the bass is going to be hanging out, like what it's going to be doing, and it continues throughout the album, sort of hitting similar themes. I mean, there's not going to be a slow dance tune. There's not going to be like an acapella track on here. You know what you're getting. These are going to be the punk rock songs, and you'll get some that fit one cookie mold and some that don't. Kid is an upbeat, up tempo tune with plenty of palm mutes. The prerequisite woes. This is the track that I had probably the most problems with the versions that I was listening to. I don't know if they're all like that, just being blown out, and it really made it close to unlistenable. But again, it's punk rock, so I could filter that out and find a groovy tune. Monday Morning Ant Brigade is a marching ballad of a track. It's one of those in the era you had to design your album with a definite crowd participation track or two. This fills the number two slot pretty well. It seemed to be one of the best put together, best song parts put together onto this, along with the others that I mentioned. But these really stuck with me in my Record Breakers the home game the week before.
Yeah. Patrick, what would be key songs for you?
The opener / title track, Hopeless Romantic. That is just a good song. I didn't love all this record, but I love that song. It's dumb, simple. It's hiding a pretty cool bass line. The lyrics are fun and very much fit sort of the genre. It's a good song. It's got a good sing-along chorus. It's fun, which is, I think, probably what they're going for. Fight to Live, if only for the quality bass line. That's a really good example of if like you are a person who plays bass in a like punk rock style band and you want to know like what you can do other than like playing root notes. Listen to that and see kind of the things he does. Little bass runs can really, really help a song in the genre. And mostly because I just like dueling vocals. Wish Me Well, You Can Go to Hell. It's just a fun, silly song. It had some like talky bits that I didn't really care about, but I like dueling vocals because I don't know, I'm a weirdo. So it was fun and interesting, and like threw a little curveball late in the record.
Yeah. There's some great tracks on here. Some great fun punk rock tracks, and like Olay, which is undeniable. Which fills me with so many memories of watching like various independent wrestling events and watching him and Kevin, then Steen, now Owens, nearly kill each other at the end of a Ring of Honor event. Yeah, some cool stuff. Let's bring it back around the horn for some conclusive thoughts. Brett, what will be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
I doubt that this album is going to knock your socks off. I mean, it's not that it's another one of these. If you're into an upbeat 90s sound, semi-soft side punk rock, it's not like squeezy hug you punk rock, but it's less hard. There's more of it in this album for you. They aren't making any more albums from the 1990s, so if you're looking for a new one and you haven't found this one, here you go. That's not a trivial thing. You can't really replicate the sound of punk rock in the late 90s today. I enjoyed my time going back, and listening to this was very. It drew me back into a little bit of nostalgia for, something that I enjoyed when I was half the age that I am now. And for that, I thank you, Drew. I feel old.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Patrick, what will be your conclusions on this album as a whole?
It didn't change my life. It didn't ruin my day. It's all right. It's not my thing, and it's not that I like disliked it. I recognize what it is, and probably a different, literally maybe just a different week in my life, I might have enjoyed it more, or maybe enjoyed it more back when, back in the Disney when I was listening to this kind of music on the regular. But it is like a nice little time capsule of that kind of era of punk rock and one band's approach to it. But like I also have this really good memory of Warped Tour 04, Bouncing Souls and Flogging Molly were the last two bands, and at Warped Tour, like, there's 40 million things going on, but the last two bands pretty much get that hour to themselves, at least back then, so the entire crowd's there, and it's really high energy, and they were fun. They were a good time, and for that, I thank them. But this isn't my thing. I think there are better examples of this genre from this era, but again, like, punk's a really big, wide genre in a lot of ways, and nobody likes everything, and that's just kind of how it went for me.
Everything's a band from Philadelphia, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
West Philadelphia?
Yeah, this is a very distinct sound from a certain era, and I enjoyed the heck out of it because I really like that sound, and I really like this band, and getting to just sit down and listen to a whole album of this band and this sound was really fun, really fantastic, and it just threw me back, and I have no complaints. Drew, what will be your conclusions?
This is a band that, like I said, I've liked for a while. It's a sound that this is, when I think of punk rock, this is the type of band that I think back to. It is a band that I am super pumped to go see. And again, the show I'm going to is them, Rancid, and Dropkick Murphys, to give you an idea of what you're getting into. That block. I think the Bouncing Souls are definitely worth the time. There's something that, again, like I said, as they've gone on, their production quality has gotten better. As things that help your production quality have gotten cheaper, it seems their production quality has gotten better. Weird how that can work out. But all in all, I think they're a band that's just a whole lot of fun. And if you remember fondly the Tony Hawk Pro Skater soundtracks and all that they entailed, maybe the Bouncing Souls are something that if you haven't tried yet, you should give a shot to. I don't know. They're something that I will always go back and listen to. This, Anchors Away, like Summer Vacation, like all of it's. I like them a lot. They're always great. I will always pull them out, and it will always make me feel better about my day.
Yeah, and those are our thoughts on Bouncing Souls. Sorry if I was distracted, but apparently opening your iTunes folder on your computer means iTunes launches.
Wow, what a lovely piece of software.
No,
iTunes is great.
we're gonna make me uninstall again. Fuck. I don't know why I reinstall in the first place. Anyways, aside from that, I was just gonna fucking look up what the hell fucking Bouncing Souls songs I had on here.
That's what you do. That's what you get, Petey, for trying to make up the production quality of this show
by looking up some information.
By opening a folder.
It's seriously like, why? No, I'm not fucking opening up iTunes. Stop opening. Like, all right. Moving on. Moving on to the main event of the evening. To what we've all been waiting for, to our haiku reviews, where we sum up all our thoughts in a poetic format that we probably don't even really have correct. No, we most likely don't. We don't have correct. We sum it up on haikus for fun. Let's just do the same order. Brett, what is your haiku?
So, if you need one, here's another one of these. iTunes is really bad. There you
go. Patrick, what is your haiku?
Thought it would be fun, and maybe it could have been. Decent bass lines, though.
For me, my haiku. Classic feel-good punk. Perfect for driving all night. Nothing generic. Drew, what is your haiku?
Thank you for making me not the only one to make a generic reference. Old-fashioned punk. Need to get some A.D.I.D.A.S. You can hold the beer.
Yes. I forgot about the A.D.I.D.A.S. part.
Well, they drink beer and wear A.D.I.D.A.S.
And they wear A.D.I.D.A.S. Yes, that's an important part of it.
Meanwhile, I love that the song is the A.D.I.D.A.S. reference in the song, even though their name is a reference to Doc Martens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
No one ever said punk rock had to make sense.
No, you just got to be a punk. Cheech said it all.
Yes.
I kind of want to get a pair of Adidas. Just okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Did I already ask you, Drew? Oh yeah, I already asked you for your haiku.
I made the Adidas reference.
Yes. This iTunes thing has got me messed up. Not that I'm always on the ball and always together, anyways. But sheesh. Yeah, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode of Record Breakers. Those are our thoughts on this album. You can, of course, find this album on our Spotify playlist, or a variation, as we found out, of this album, but secondhand, I guess. On our Spotify playlist, play Record Breakers, the home game. On that playlist will be next week's record. Barring a guest, because I think I have something working. I don't know. We'll see if somebody gets back to me. But the next record we know of is my record, which is Mega Ran and his not latest album because he's constantly pumping out music, but one of his recent albums, and one of his kind of more prolific album, like complete albums, at least for him, a personal one. RNDM, aka Random.
Random.
RNDM. And it is going to be an interesting talk. Some cool nerdcore hip hop, and more, because it's not just that. But yeah, look forward to that next week. But that's next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. Patrick is at Swagger. Brett is at Hibbity Bibbert, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew's at XLuciferX. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com if you want to email us. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. Rebelli TV on YouTube, on other places. We're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, we're a bunch of places. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Rock over Run London, rock on Chicago. Toodaloo. Breakfast champion.